Welcome to Simply Bitcoin. Today, we're going to be exposing the $1.3 trillion asset manager that just quietly bought over $250 million worth of Bitcoin. When you thought that was bullish, this week we just saw the biggest Bitcoin ETF flows in 120 days. Are these two events signaling the next leg up that is potentially coming in the next month or two? I don't know. We shall see. This all sounds crazy, but we're about to touch 69K Bitcoin after all. We're going to break all of this stuff down. We have all the sources, all the receipts for you guys. But before we start the show, I do want to bring up our very special guest for today, Mr. Jon Chenot, and of course, Optimus Fields. Jon Chenot is the founder of CitadelTheory.com, and Opti needs no introduction. But you were laughing, bro. So
yeah, well, I mean, I find it funny that you picked 69K and not 70K. So, you know, hey, there's a little Easter egg for everyone out there.
Whoa, Opti. I think you're reading way too much into it. Anyways, guys, let's jump straight into the news, shall we? So I was talking about this asset manager. Who am I talking about? It is Morgan Stanley. This is a headline. Morgan Stanley's Bitcoin ETF holdings surge to 272 million amid rising crypto demand. Let's get into some more of the details. Wall Street titan Morgan Stanley has significantly ramped up its exposure to Bitcoin, with its Bitcoin ETFs holdings now exceeding 272 million US dollars. This marks just over 2 months since the investment powerhouse began providing its clients with indirect exposure to Bitcoin via ETFs. Currently, these holdings represent 0.02% of the firm's overall $1.2 trillion assets under management. It goes on to say, just recently, Morgan Stanley empowered thousands of its financial advisors to offer eligible clients the opportunity to invest in spot Bitcoin ETFs. This following the SEC's approval of the spot Bitcoin ETF in January. Of course, we guys know that. The firm's global head of research recently highlighted Bitcoin mining stocks as a promising new investment avenue for CIOs. These investments could harness long-term growth opportunities associated with innovations in energy sources, ranging from natural gas to nuclear power. Van Eck, head of digital assets research, Matthew Sigel, shared this in his social media post on October 14th. Also, in other news as well, here's Eric Balkunas. I hope I pronounced that correctly. He says Bitcoin ETFs have crossed 20 billion in total net inflows for first time after a huge week of 1.5 billion. For context, it took gold ETFs about 5 years to reach the same number. That is absolutely massive. From a historical perspective, the Bitcoin ETFs have been the best performing ETFs of all time. It doesn't matter the category. And of course, I don't think that's a coincidence. Here's our research with some really cool like infographics and some numbers as well. ETFs bought over $920 million of Bitcoin so far this week, and it is only Wednesday. Of course, that number has gone up since then. And here's updated graphics as well. ETFs bought over $1.38 billion of Bitcoin in 3 days this week. This is already the biggest ETF week in 4 months. So could this be explaining the recent price run up? Also, it seems like the pro Bitcoin candidate is doing well, not only in the polls, but in the betting data as well. Could that play into it as well? I don't know. We shall see. But anyways, let's break down some of this news. The things that popped up to me specifically was the Morgan Stanley news. And the reason that pops up to me is because, right, it seems like a lot of the clients, remember we got very, very optimistic and bullish when we were breaking the news to you guys that a lot of these banks were getting their wealth management division the thumbs up to start selling Bitcoin to some of their clients. And it seems like that has been successful so far. And one of the things that we always talk about on Simply Bitcoin is this idea of aligned incentives. And the beauty of Bitcoin is aligned incentives. And what do I mean by that? So Bitcoin miners aren't mining Bitcoin out of charity, out of the goodness of their heart. They're mining Bitcoin because they think they're going to make money. People that run Bitcoin nodes, they're running Bitcoin nodes because they don't want to trust someone else's copy of the Bitcoin blockchain. They want to trust their own copy of the Bitcoin blockchain. And it goes on, right? And what happens is people following their own incentives actually make the network stronger. So this is why Max Kaiser makes the joke that, you know, Saylor is Bitcoin's employee of the month and Larry Fink is Bitcoin's employee of the month. When Larry Fink goes on TV, when Saylor goes on TV, when this news drops of Morgan Stanley, they're working for Bitcoin. And if they're working for Bitcoin, if you're holding a bag of Bitcoin, they're working for you. So this is extremely, extremely bullish. This is market signals indicating and telling you that not only big banks, but also the clients of those big banks are interested in getting exposure to Bitcoin. And of course, that is a one-way street. You start with a 1% allocation, you start with a 2% allocation. Fast forward 4 years later, that allocation is now 50%. And if you're a total Bitcoin maxi like me, Opti, and Mr. Chenot here, you end up going like 100%. So all of this is extremely bullish news, optimistic news, and it doesn't surprise me at all whatsoever. Now, in regards to this historic week in terms of finally the ETF inflows, my comment on that is effing finally. We've been stuck ranging at this level for the last 8 months. It's been boring. I feel like the life has gone out of my soul. It's just been a very just boring time in Bitcoin's history. So I'm glad things are picking up again. I'm glad things are getting exciting again, and that perfectly aligns with every other Bitcoin bull market that we've experienced. And it seems like this one is aligning, right? So it looks like we might have a great end of 2024, a great Q4. And it seems like we might also have a great 2025 as well. Opti, what's your take on this?
Yeah, well, first off, I do want to kind of mention the numbers there. I think that is absolutely incredible. Morgan Stanley put 0.02% of their holdings in Bitcoin. And that's, a little more than $250 million. So once they actually get it up to 1%, and like everyone else says, 5 to 10%, it really just goes to show that all of us, average Bitcoiners, all the plebs out there, like we're not going to be doing as much damage as these institutional managers are when they're going to just put a little portion of their holdings into Bitcoin. And like we noticed, I know like we've been covering the ETFs all year. And at this point, I think we're all tired of the ETFs. But I think it is a very historical point in the Bitcoin story. Obviously, as we've shown this year, it's become the best performing ETF ever out of anything ever. And I think that just goes to show that there is a huge market for Bitcoin. Obviously, more people are waking up to the idea that they need to hold some Bitcoin. But the last week, man, it's actually incredible how much money has been flowing into these ETFs. Obviously, as a Bitcoin maxi, a spot maxi here, we need all that money to eventually flow into the spot Bitcoin. Obviously, I'm not saying that they're not actually holding that Bitcoin, but once we get these really well-off individuals holding Bitcoin directly, I think that's when the game's really going to change. But man, I think we're going to see some incredible amount of purchasing into these ETFs in 2025. And it really kind of just goes to something I've been saying on the show for a while, that Q4 of this year, and of course, the beginning of 2025, or rather all of 2025, we're going to see the biggest names in the world start to adopt Bitcoin. And if you're not paying attention to Bitcoin like we do every single day, and you're just like a normie on the street, these are some big buy signals for them. It's like, oh, wait, all of the biggest institutional managers in the world have exposure to Bitcoin. Maybe I need to buy some Bitcoin here. And that signal hasn't even spread out to, to Main Street yet, but it's getting there. So I think the mainstream consciousness around Bitcoin and the perspective of Bitcoin is changing. And once that really happens, it's this, like, we might be seeing the Omega candle, the fabled Omega candle is coming soon enough. But it's really crazy how quickly the sentiment around Bitcoin has changed in 2024. And again, I've been saying it all year. 2024, at least in Bitcoin terms, seems to be the year where we lay down the foundation for a really incredible price move and the adoption of Bitcoin on a global level, which we've been covering all year.
100%. And of course, Mr. Chenot, we have Mr. Chenot in the house. How you doing, John? How's life?
I'm doing great.
What are your thoughts?
I'm doing great. It's good to be with you guys. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, I'm not much of a macro guy. I'm not like a real in the weeds finance guy, but the ETFs, the news, just to me, all as long as people are talking about Bitcoin and looking at it, I mean, our philosophy has always been like Bitcoiners have the cards, we have the hand. Bitcoin is what it is. It is the most high quality digital asset, most high quality money, and so it's just a matter of time for that before people find out about that and start realizing it and start actually allocating their resources accordingly. So, it's just confirmation that we've got the thesis kind of playing out. I like the shout out that I'm Matt Odell's brother. I like that. Yeah, we're brothers from another mother for sure.
Another thing I wanted to mention, just by chance, John and I are both wearing camo hats, and that is because we are hunting bears out there. So if you are a bear shorting Bitcoin right now, we are coming for you. This is camo hat time. We are hunting bears in the chat.
Oh man. All right, everybody. Well, before we jump into the numbers, lots to unpack today. We're going to talk to Mr. Chenot about citadeltheory.com. And we have a lot of news also to unpack. Let's go through some of the subjects, shall we? So first, of course, a long theme of the show that we've been talking about for quite a while, which is this idea of the disintermediation of information enabled by the internet, of course. And then also this very cool, interesting tweet dropped by Joe Carlesare, which we're going to talk about later today. So, guys, we have a jam-packed show, lots of content. Before we get to it, I do want to give a shout out to our lead sponsor. Of course, I'm talking about bitcoinwell.com. Bitcoinwell.com is the best place to build your automatic self-custody Bitcoin stack. Buy real Bitcoin, enable your independence with the fastest and safest way to buy Bitcoin in Canada and the USA. To get started, you put in your email address. It takes about 2 to 5 minutes to sign up, and bada bing, bada boom, you're ready to buy Bitcoin or sell Bitcoin on BitcoinWell. It's a clear 1% spread. It's obviously Bitcoin only, and it's completely non-custodial, empowering sovereign ownership with free automatic self-custody. I think that's the key there. Also, every time you buy Bitcoin on BitcoinWell, you earn BitcoinWell points, and you can redeem those points towards the Bitcoin Wishing Well contest. Every time you toss a coin into the Bitcoin Wishing Well, you have an opportunity to win up to 1 million Satoshis. We're going to do that for you guys live on air right now. Get your Lightning wallets ready, tossing a coin into the Wishing Well, and first person to scan the QR code has won 500 sats. If you use promo code simplybtc, again, simplybtc, to sign up to bitcoinwell.com today, you get 3 tosses into the Bitcoin Wishing Well. All right, everybody, let's hit the numbers. Lots to talk about. All right, everybody, I do want to give a shout out to our sponsor. Of course, I'm talking about Stampseed. Usually when you buy yourself a hardware wallet, it comes with a piece of paper, and you're meant to write down your seed words on that piece of paper. The problem is that paper is prone to water damage, fire damage. Your dog could eat it. It's not the proper way to store your generational wealth, which is why we recommend the Stampseed Titanium Seed Phrase Storage Kit. Comes with everything you need to literally proof of work stamp your seed into a plate of titanium. It comes with the hammer, comes with the letter stamping tools, comes with the plate, everything you need. This is, excuse me. Wow, I still have the cough. This is how you store your generational wealth properly. Don't write down your seed words on a piece of paper. Stamp them onto a plate of titanium. This thing has been battle tested. It's been put in a pit of fire. It's been blowtorched. It's been put in salt water for more than 24 hours, and it survived. This is how you store your generational wealth properly. Head over to stampseed.com today and use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off anything on the store. At the time of recording, the Bitcoin price is $68,790. Sats per dollar, 1,454. Block height, 866,217. Realized monetary inflation, 1.29%. Market cap, 1.36 trillion. Bitcoin versus gold market cap, 7.21%. Money supply, 19,769,211 BTC. Percentage issued, 94.14%. In the grand scheme of things, we are just getting started. Anyways, excuse me. Moving on to today's piece of news, the thing that I wanted to cover today. which is this interesting tweet by Turdemister. Turdemister is like a Bitcoin OG. He's been in the industry for quite a long time. This guy's been telling people to buy Bitcoin since it was like under $100, and making the case that Bitcoin is becoming a major catalyst for this paradigm shift, enabling fuel for one and escape for the other. And Naval is referencing what I would call a theme that we've been talking a lot about on Simply Bitcoin, which is this idea of the great disintermediation enabled by the internet. This is a theory that the book, The Sovereign Individual, is talking about it, where they make the case that we are transitioning from the kind of the 20th century, the 21st century. We're transitioning into the what they call the information age. And the information age, of course, a lot of that is enabled by the power of the internet, and that's going to essentially enable two things: the disintermediation of information and the disintermediation of information and money. So Naval is tweeting. He says, people who live on X and people who watch the news are living in two completely different worlds. So true. I mean, think about it. If you're watching the news, you're outsourcing research to another person. If you're getting your news from X, or if you're getting your news from Nostr, or if you're getting your news from independent content creators, in a way, you're doing your own research. You're picking and choosing what information you choose to consume and what information you choose not to consume. And I think what the rise of independent media has shown is that the people that are telling the news on TV aren't exactly honest all the time. And the reason that I think it's so important is because I think Bitcoin, in a way, really kind of represents this also, because you have the official, like the way that they phrase the news and the way that they like try to convince everyone to continue consuming the news versus doing your own research is they say, like, you know, the independent media is misinformation. The independent media is propaganda. You can't trust the independent media. That's a lot of the things that they say. They'll say that over and over again. But here's the thing. The exact opposite. It seems like it's happening. And if you see, they kind of talk about fiat in the same way. Like, fiat is the official money. Fiat is the money of the people. Fiat is the public money. But if you compare fiat with Bitcoin, it kind of tells you the exact opposite. Like, can anybody just print fiat? No, you go to jail. Can you audit your central bank? No, you probably go to jail for that too. Can anyone just print Bitcoin? Yeah, technically, yes. You can plug in a miner, you could print some Bitcoin, right? But you have to pay for the electricity costs. Could you audit the Bitcoin blockchain? Yeah, technically you could do that. What sounds more private and public to you? Also, fiat is inflationary. It constantly loses purchasing power over time. Bitcoin is deflationary. It constantly increases in purchasing power over time. So it's like the official sources are like hiding behind these official emblems, and like, you know, the dollar has like old men on it. Like, you got to trust the old guy on the dollar. It makes it look official, right? And this Bitcoin thing is like powered by memes. Like, what the fuck is this shit? It's like it's not official, but it's all like a fugazi. It's all bullshit, because if you actually look behind the curtain, they're just printing money. Like this it's just paper, right? If you look behind the curtain, behind the official emblems of ABC and CBS, you're looking behind that and you're like, wait a second, are they manipulating the news? Are they selectively editing certain interviews? Like why is it that the guy talking about DMT and smoking weed with Elon Musk is being more authentic and honest than these official news sources? Like, what's going on here, right? So all it takes is a little bit of critical thinking and honestly some common sense, and you come to a realization that, wow, you know, independent media and independent money is the future. And by the way, the data seems to be backing up this as well. The recent article from Gallup, Americans' trust in media remains at a trend low. Here's the data. Now, I want to point something out to you guys. You know, it seems like this trend started to change around the year 1972. What I gotta say as a Bitcoiner is, what the fuck happened in 1971? Anyways, so the numbers just keep going down, right? The percentage of Americans that trust in media is at 31%. I don't even know how it's that fucking high, to be honest. And then of course,
Boomers.
and then it makes sense, right? Why people like Joe Rogan and people like Russell Brand and people like Tucker have garnered such large, massive audiences. Like, it starts to make sense now. And why are people choosing to get their news off of X? Why are people choosing to get their news off of independent media? Well, it just seems like they're telling us the truth. Like, that's my perception of it. So anyways, this is something that we've been talking about, this general theme. I call it the great disintermediation. I think it's a great trend. But I mean, you hear Hillary Clinton talking about this. You hear John Kerry talking about it. It's a problem for them, right? If you're a government, you've been used to controlling the narrative through the handful of legacy media outlets. There was that like one editor that you can call and say, hey, you know what? I'm not going to invite you to the presidential gala if you don't pull down that article that makes us look bad, right? If you don't report on the war that's happening positively, you're not going to be invited, bro. But that's a lot more difficult to do when it's millions upon millions of individuals talking amongst each other, which is what social media is, mass scale peer-to-peer communications. But what you guys should pay attention to is what that's going to enable. So information is what we're going through right now. It's disintermediating in front of our eyes. You see them pushing back. You see them trying to shut down X. You see them attacking Rumble. You see them attacking the alternative media sources that are no longer alternative. They're the primary media sources. And what's coming, and it hasn't happened yet, but it's perfectly being set up, is the next jump, which is when people are questioning the official media sources, people are going to start questioning the official money. And I think that's going to be a bigger problem for the people that want to control, or better said, let me put it this way, for the people that think they know what's best for you, for the people that think that they know how to manage your life better than how you would be able to manage your own life. So anyways, that's my 2 cents on that. It's obviously incredibly bullish. Opti, how long have we been covering this topic? For at least 2 or 3 years. It's so
when we
come.
Yeah, and Nico, it's funny, when we first started covering it, everyone's like, what does this have to do with Bitcoin? And it's like, yeah, guys, first of all, Bitcoin is speech, money is speech. And second of all, what's the quote you always say, Nico? If you can't speak freely, what makes you think they're going to let you transact freely? So it's definitely all intertwined. And I do want to answer one of your questions, Nico, because we do have the data. You asked who is still watching the television, and I'm going to get the tomatoes here because everyone knows what it is. It's the boomers. Literally, the boomers are the only ones still watching television. And actually, I do want to give a hat tip to my boy Nolan out there. Count BTC.
Not all the boomers though, because we got some badass
boomers.
There's some badass Bitcoin boomers, bro.
There's some good boomers, but still, I'm still gonna blame the boomers. They're the biggest tragedy
but
we've had.
I don't blame them, dude. I don't blame them. They grew up with that.
This is my next point, and this is tying into my next point. And this is how Nolan always says, it's like, look, when you're arguing with fiat maxis out there, when you're arguing with people that are just so ingrained with the propaganda machines, you're not necessarily even arguing with real people. It's like you're arguing against a television, and they've been fed their talking points, and it's just sound bites. And so no amount of facts or logic will change their minds about what the truth is, because the television says so. And again, it's Orwellian at this point. If the television doesn't tell them facts, or quote unquote facts, then they don't believe it. For some reason, people still believe that just because it comes out of the television, it's truth, when we've been exposing this constantly. If it comes out of the television, it's most likely propaganda. Hence why we like to joke, well, rather, I like to joke about the fact that we are propagandists out here in the best way possible. But one stat, Nico, that I find very interesting, because you were talking about the money printing, and we haven't covered it this week, but there's a crazy stat that just came out that basically the U.S. government has printed $500 billion in the last 3 weeks. It went from printing $1 trillion every 90 days, I believe, to now they're printing, at least this last batch of printing, 500 billion in the last 3 weeks. So it seems like the fiat apocalypse is accelerating quicker and quicker, and they have to continue to inject more capital into the system to keep it going. And let's not forget, the reason there's a connection not only with Bitcoin and speech, but fiat and speech, and why they have to control the propaganda machines or the corporate press out there is, guys, remember what fiat means. It literally means by decree. It is backed by the government lies and the government narrative, and that's what it is. It's literally the government says so, and this is what your money is, and this is what we're battling. This is what we battle every single day. Is we're battling against the television. We're battling against, the $1 trillion psyop campaign to keep you in the box and make you deaf, dumb, and blind. But as we're showing with the data, people are waking up, at least a younger generation. We're out here doing our own research. We're noticing the patterns. We're seeing the lies, and the game is starting to come to a crescendo, and the jig is starting to come to an end. But who knows how long they can kick the can down the road? But it seems like critical thinking is back on the table, and you just love to see it.
100%. John, what's your take on this, man? I'm sure you see it too. Opti, how are my mic levels, by the way?
You're doing all right. You are peaking a little bit, so just don't yell too much, and I'll fix it on the end of the show. But I gotta tinker with it a little bit.
John, so what's your take on all this? I'm sure that you see it as well. You see this trend, right? Where it's like it's like two different worlds, two different realities. There's the reality of people that are consuming, information on X, doing their own research, and then people that for whatever reason they're still watching CNN or one of those networks.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, and it's very real. Like, this is how our reality is actually created, is through our perception. Like, we oftentimes a lot of people go through life thinking that everything is happening outside of them, and that they are just a participant or someone who's like reacting to everything around them. But in reality, we're co-creating our reality, our existence, and the world that we live in, and that's what the CIA realizes. That's what the government realizes. That's what the media companies realize, and that means that they're trying to shape people's perception of reality so that they can then guide massive events. And so, if you don't actually take ownership of your own perception of your own reality and what you're paying attention to, then you're going to be led astray. Then you're going to be sold a bill of goods. You're going to be told what is true. You're going to be told what is most important, especially. So we're coming from this old age where the things that are the most important to focus on, the things that are the best, are all determined from the top down. We're in this old paradigm. We've got the experts, the certified, doctors or scientists, and the certified media companies. They're all kind of telling us what to believe and what is best from the top down. But obviously, that's now being blown out of the water, and the reality in which we live it's much more of an even playing field. And everyone has to kind of seek out the truth for themselves. They have to use their own. They can't rely on the centralized resources anymore. And it's taking a long time for these people to realize that. But that's just the reality in which we live now. The internet has connected people on an information level in this way to where people can communicate so quickly. So that's up to now the individual has the power to actually seek out truth and then think about what kind of world they want to create for themselves, and then also kind of see like where they want to steer clear of. So yeah, I think about it a lot. A couple things come to mind. Like, one of them is you're bringing up the sovereign individual, like one of the things that they focus on. One of the quotes in that book that I was thinking of when you brought it up was that is actually on like central on my website, but it's that in the future, one of the milestones by which we measure financial success won't be just how many zeros you have to add to your net worth, but whether you can structure your affairs in a way that enables you to realize full individual autonomy and independence. So that's the old paradigm where it's like, oh, you've got all the things, you've got the money in your bank, you've got the house, and that's your status, and that's the fame and everything like that. So that's the old paradigm. But now we're moving into this new realm where all of those things are becoming less and less valuable. The money in your bank account actually it can be created very quickly by a certain group of people, right? So
100%.
with Bitcoin now, it's taking us out of that old paradigm and putting us actually into nature. It's reconnecting us to natural forces and having that be the actual paradigm.
Beautiful. Wow. Oh, dude. Oh, man. John's put some thought into it, and I love it. And it just this primes it for the culture segment. We're gonna talk more about the Citadel theory because all these things combined, like all these things are interconnected. What John was just talking about, and I saw a really interesting comment that Opti pulled up, and I want to actually pass it on to John and get your thoughts on it. So Jaimecito said, "Bitcoin showed us that it's all BS." I think that's a very interesting topic because I didn't really open my eyes until I didn't really open my eyes on money until I switched to a Bitcoin standard. Right, I came because I thought I was going to get rich, and then I was like, "Whoa! Like there's devils to this, right? Like I could actually leave the world a better place than what I found it just by adopting a Bitcoin standard." And then that made me question a bunch of things. And where I'm at right now in my rabbit hole journey is like, I'm well past the question, what is money? That's been answered in my head. Now I'm on the level of like, what is government, right? Like that's like the question that I'm constantly asking myself. Like, what is the role of government? Should the government really be doing this? Why is their role so big? Why do they care what people are saying? Should they really be in a position where the government is dictating what speech is okay and what speech is not okay? Because that's essentially what some politicians are saying. And I think history has shown that's a very slippery slope. So I'm going to pass it on to John. Like, how much do you think Bitcoin has played in, what role do you think Bitcoin has played in waking people up to this like mass control? That sounds conspiratorial the way I phrased it, but like it really is that way. Like if you're on a fiat standard, like you are operating in a control system, right? Like you're in the matrix, bro. I think if you have Bitcoin and self custody and you feel the sovereignty, you really feel it because there's a spiritual component to Bitcoin. There's an emotional component. I sound like a crazy person, but I promise you, like switch to a Bitcoin standard at least for 6 months and you will start feeling these benefits. Like there is nothing but you feel empowered as an individual when you have Bitcoin in self custody. So, John, I want to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I truly believe that that's one of the most important spiritual questions that anyone can ask. Like when you're saying like, what is the role of government? What is government? What role do they play in our society? You know, for a lot of people in our world, in our society, the government is God. Like the government is the prime authority that everyone must obey, and that's just the assumption that everyone kind of starts with. And I think one of the reasons for that is because people are disconnected from God and from their own like their actual connection to God, which I believe comes through your soul kind of making value judgments and choosing and interacting in a pure way with your environment, and actually being conscious of that. Like that's we can get into the divine logos, like Jesus' message. I have a big theological background, but to me, that's the essence of like God with us. Is in our hearts we have the ability to make value judgments, and we and that's kind of how the spirituality of money, of value, of all these decisions, and even economics comes into play. So if you don't recognize that that's your responsibility, that you have just within you, and that no one else can take that away from you, like that's your connection to God within your own soul. We've kind of been brainwashed to think that, well, that might be cute, like God is something that maybe you go and do during Sundays, or it's something you do at church or something like that. But no, this is everyday reality. How we're living in the world is connected to that. So if God is not there as the primary authority, then people are going to replace it with something. And
Yes.
and so that's just natural idolatry. Like, so since that's how we are as like creative beings, as like social beings, we're these animals who want to find like the greatest source of reliability and of authority. So if we're told like, well, that's what the government is, and that's what we're going to rely on. So it's whether it's the government, whether it's like the other institutions that we're told are the most important, that's what we're going to rely on. And so for Bitcoin's blowing all of that out of the water, because the most important thing of a society is the money. That's what is connecting everyone together on value level. So I would say like the most spiritual aspect of any society is the money. So if the money that a society is using is corrupted, it's able to be corrupted, then it's going to be like that society itself is going to be fundamentally flawed, and the civilization is going to be at risk. So
100%.
yeah, so with Bitcoin, it's reconnecting the money to natural forces. We're no longer relying on the government to say, by decree, we say this is valuable, and we can have our central bankers print as much of it as we want, and give it to whoever we want, and extract value from our society whenever we want. We're saying no, that's determined by God. Like natural forces need to take place in order for this money to be created, and so that's kind of reconnecting society on this massive level back to natural forces. So
No,
yes.
I completely agree, man. I completely agree.
W God.
It's a very, very interesting conversation. So like, first of all, like I think fiat money allows human beings to kind of be disconnected from reality, because it allows, like, the power of the money printer is very powerful. So, and there's nothing anchoring it, right? And Bitcoin is anchored to reality via proof of work. So it's anchored, like it's anchored via energy, and fiat isn't. And one of the things
Right.
that you mentioned too, which I think is really interesting, which is this idea of like, and you see this with like communistic societies as well, right? Where, you know, they'll say, you know, this is atheistic, right? We don't have a religion, but like the ideology, the political ideology itself is the religion, right? Like that, it's like it's a non-theistic religion that takes the place of religion itself, right? Which is very,
Yeah.
very interesting. And I think that, you know, in a world where government is all powerful, powered by fiat, right? Bitcoin kind of comes along, and it's like it kind of gives you a way out. And, you know, some people find that spiritual, some people may not find that spiritual. But it is very interesting, like what it does, because it kind of frees you from that like old way of looking at the state. Very, very interesting topic. Anyways, guys, we are going to move on to the news segment. We're going to talk about a continuation of a theme, really, in today's show. It seems like we kind of do this. We never plan this, but it seems like it always happens. But Joe Carlesare dropped a tweet that I found really interesting. And of course, Joe Carlesare has a legal background. And he's talking about the fact that he believes that today's Supreme Court would likely find a 6102 order unconstitutional. So we're going to explore that. We're going to talk about it. So stay tuned. Here we go. Special shout out to our sponsor, Compass Mining. They make Bitcoin mining accessible to everyone, from beginners to experienced investors. Their turnkey miners gets you online and hashing within 48 hours, making it easier than ever to start your mining journey. Plus, with their active marketplace, you can resell your miner at any time, adding flexibility and value to your investment. Visit their website to access a wealth of resources, learning everything you need to know about Bitcoin mining. Take your first step into the world of Bitcoin mining with confidence. Discover more at compassmining.io. Again, compassmining.io, and see how Compass Mining can power your success. I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Foundation. It's self-custody done right. They built a premium grade hardware wallet called Passport right here in the US, and it integrates seamlessly with their free app called Envoy. Passport is fully open source and verifiable. It's the most intuitive Bitcoin wallet designed with a UX reminiscent of a classic feature phone, so you'll know how to navigate it and use it the moment you pick it up. It's also air-gapped, meaning Bitcoin stays offline, never touching an internet connection. It's Bitcoin only, open source verifiable, air-gap security model, gorgeous design craft, premium grade materials. Get your Bitcoin off exchanges and into your own hands in just a few minutes with Passport at foundation.xyz/simply. Get peace of mind for your piece of Bitcoin. So what you're seeing right now is Opti, and Opti is going to model the Passport by Foundation devices. And it's a beautiful hardware wallet. It doesn't come with Opti if you use promo code Simply, but you will get a discount. It's incredibly easy to use. It's intuitive. It has the convenience, but it doesn't sacrifice the security. Of course, this beautiful, beautiful male model of Optimus Fields. Anyways, let's get into today's show. And of course, you could scan the QR code or check the link in the video description. All right. So I do want to talk about this, like kind of like open discussion, because we're seeing this talked about. And I'm going to connect this with a report that was dropped by NYDIG somewhat recently. And they were making the case that Bitcoin's protected under the First Amendment. So here's Joe Carlesare says, make no mistake, today's U.S. Supreme Court would likely find any 6102 style executive order unconstitutional. This court prioritizes individual property rights, economic liberty, and rejects overly broad government seizures like those of the 1930s. So let's talk about this. I think it's a continuation of what we were talking about during the numbers segment, to be honest. But yes, I think that there is going to be an inevitable clash between the way of the old world and the new world. And we see that with media, obviously. But I think we are going to start to see that with money as a larger and larger percentage of the population start to opt out of state money and start to opt out into, to use BlackRock's own words, an alternative non-sovereign currency, which of course is Bitcoin. Now, I think what happened in Nigeria is a really interesting case study, and I think it's a little bit of a foreshadowing. So what happened in Nigeria was the Nigerian government, their local currency is called the Naira, and they rolled out a central bank digital currency like most countries are planning to do. The problem is that the Naira, the e-Naira, which is the CBDC of the Naira, wasn't adopted. And what was being heavily adopted and is still heavily adopted is alternatives. So specifically stable coins like Tether and the Coinbase, the USDC or whatever. And of course, Bitcoin. And what the Nigerian government did was they actually shut down Binance, and they locked one of the Binance executives in prison, and he's still in prison. And essentially what that tells me is, instead of the government basically saying like, oh fuck, like we should probably like not debase the currency because debasing the currency is just going to incentivize people to seek alternatives, they would rather blame the off ramp, and they would say, no, the off ramp is what's causing this fiat to be unstable. It's not our fiscal policy, it's the on ramp's responsibility. Now you're saying, okay, but Nico, that's happening in Nigeria. What the fuck does that have to do with anything? It has everything to do with everything. Look at how they're treating X. Look at how they're treating Rumble, right? These are alternative media sources. Look at how they're treating our industry. Arthur Hayes, CZ, the Samurai Wallet developers, the Tornado Cash developers, they all went to prison. Like all these things, all those guys. So all those guys went to prison, right? Look at what they did with TD Bank. TD Bank got a slap in the wrist and a fine, and they just see it as like the cost of doing business. They didn't go to prison, right? So, like, clearly, I think there's a little bit of foreshadowing there. And if you just use a little bit of common sense and game theory, the US government gets a tremendous amount of power from being able to print its own money and weaponize that money. So that's what US sanctioned policy is. And think about the US government's yearly budget, how much money they spend, how much people they employ. Did you guys know that the US government is the largest employer in the world? Right? I think they employ, if you include contractors, it's like 17 million people. It's insane, right? How are they able to afford all of that? Well, they have the money printer, because if it was just via revenue via taxation, the U.S. elected. So how were they able to spend money they didn't have? They were able to print that difference. Bitcoin, and it becomes a threat to them. I think they can coexist, but if you have 60% opting out and choosing to use Bitcoin because it's a superior form of money, then to print.
Hey, Nico.
Printing.
Hey.
Go ahead.
Your internet. You're getting caught in the matrix right now for me.
Oh,
yeah, same.
But I think you might be back.
Am I back?
I think
am
so.
I back? All right. They cut out. This is French internet. Anyways.
Yeah, redo the last minute rant.
All right. So okay. So let's say, what was the last thing you heard me say?
I don't know, dude. You got lost. Something. Yeah, I don't know. Just go where you were going.
Anyways, so the TLDR is that Bitcoin I believe, is going to inevitably clash to a funding mechanism that the government has been using for a very long time, and not only a funding mechanism, but also a control mechanism as well. Right. So a lot of what I believe you'll start to see is Bitcoin is a threat to government. Bitcoin is a threat to democracy. Bitcoin is a threat to social stability. Bitcoin is a threat to fiscal policy. You're going to start to hear those messages. In fact, you've been hearing those messages. If you translate them, what they actually mean is that Bitcoin is a threat to the existing system. So Bitcoin is a threat to the system that uses a money that steals from people. That's the reality. And Bitcoin is a threat to that because it gives them the ability to opt out of that said system. So I think eventually there is going to be a clash. I don't know when that clash is going to happen. Opti and I were predicting that Bitcoin was going to enter the political discourse by 2028. It happened a lot sooner, happened in 2024. So I don't know when that happens, but I think that is inevitably going to happen. Because I just don't think that it's a system that can coexist, in my opinion. I think it could coexist for a little bit, but it's going to definitely on the fiat system, because it's like okay, so the reason that they're able to print so much money is because so many people are using the dollar. But what like instead of the vast world using Bitcoin, then they can't that and they can't print for all the things they're paying for. They can't pay for all the things they're paying for right now. So, and of course, instead of looking from within and using a little bit of critical thinking and being like, all right, I take personal responsibility. We printed too much money. We lived in excess and decadence. Maybe, you know, it's sometimes it's very difficult. A lot easier to use a scapegoat. It's a lot easier to blame something else rather than your own actions, right? So, yeah, I mean, I think that this is something that happens inevitably. I think that this is going to be a inevitable clash. Anyways, Opti, what's your take on this?
Yeah, well, first of all, Nico, I think maybe refresh your browser and try to come back in. Or I don't know, maybe it's going to make it worse. I don't know. Well, maybe we shouldn't mess with it. Okay. All right. So my thoughts on this. First of all, I love Joe's optimism on this. You know, he's got a better handle on legal matters than I do, and Nico, you look a lot better now. So you know, I love Joe's optimism in this regard. And I think when you kind of really look at the numbers, the Supreme Court currently is a lot more conservative. It's got, you know, a 6-3 Republican lead there, you know, majority. And I think it probably, according to what Joe was saying, if they're still kind of abiding by the things that they believe in, like he was saying, you know, property rights and the like, I think he's right. But it is also interesting that Kamala and you know, the Democrats have been saying if they do get in power, then they're going to stack it with Democrats, and then all of that could be completely invalid. So, you know, being hopeful here, obviously, I would love to see a Supreme Court that wants to uphold property rights, and of course, you know, that's why as Bitcoiners we love property. It's like, yeah, you can't take this Bitcoin from me. But with that being said, governments will never surprise me by their overreach, and I think all governments are the same. And again, you know, historically speaking, when a empire starts to crumble, everything goes out the window, and we're seeing this kind of play out right now. Remember, I just referenced that, like, you know, they're printing trillions of dollars every 3 months. It seems to be accelerating. So it seems like the politicians, the unproductive class, are robbing the coffers quicker than ever. And I think this is just more signs of the decline of an empire. As the politicians start to detach from reality, they try to steal as much from the population. So again, I'm not naive in thinking that governments having the monopoly on violence will probably try to step on their citizens and steal from them as much as possible. Obviously, I want to be hopeful in regards to what Joe's saying, and that the Supreme Court would uphold being against a 6102 style attack. But again, remember,
but isn't that so fiat? Like one of the things that Bitcoiners say is that, like, it's like the Constitution is flawed because of human nature. And then, like, with Bitcoin, it's like, I feel like you can't cheat Bitcoin, or better said, you're more incentivized to play by the rules than you are to try to cheat the system. I think the Constitution doesn't have that said protection. Like, you can cheat the you might be found, and I would say that fiat kind of incentivizes you to, like, you know, like, what I'm trying to say is that I feel like the Constitution is imperfect. Like, obviously, like, it's not going to last forever versus Bitcoin. Like, it's a set of rules. It's extremely hard to change. Good luck, bro. And it like brings the best out of human nature rather than what fiat does, which is bring the worst out of human nature.
Well, Nico, look, I'm a constitutionalist, but if we are being honest with ourselves, none of the politicians care about the Constitution currently. So, you know, as much as I like to believe that the piece of paper known as the Constitution protects me, I'm also not naive in thinking that it's actually in practice helping us. So, you know, I believe in the Bill of Rights. I don't even think I can be in the Supreme Court. But the politicians obviously don't. I mean, we just brought up, was it last week? You know, John Kerry saying that like, we got to get rid of the First Amendment because it makes our job harder. And it's like, yeah, that's the point, bro. Like, this is exactly the point here. Anyways, I forget where my rant was going. So let's pass it to John.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Constitution obviously has limitations just because it's a paper document that was written, over 100 years ago, and we've seen abuses to it. We've seen politicians not give a shit about it, right? But it's there. It's preserved some kind of liberty for us up to this point, so I'm grateful for it. Well, I think one of our better hopes is this idea of jurisdictional arbitrage, and actually kind of continuing to take responsibility for our own sovereignty or our own agency, just like the founders did, just like the people who created this country did, right? They were escaping tyranny, and decided to make a stand against it. And so we have to do that continually in our own way. I think that's the American spirit. That's the heart of what this country was founded on. So, I want to continue to encourage people to take a stand where they are, with wherever their friends and family are, whatever they want to protect and wherever they want to be, wherever there's home, just continue to live that out. But hopefully, hopefully in that process, we can continue to preserve whatever is left of a constitutional republic in our system. But I think it's wise to also set up contingency plans because
which is a perfect segue into the culture, John.
Absolutely. All right, everybody, let's hit the culture and continue this conversation. We're going to talk about citadeltheory.com. Let's check it out. Here we go. All right, everybody. If you guys are enjoying the show so far, check out our sponsor, Orange Pill app. Stack friends who stack sats. The Orange Pill app is the Bitcoin social layer. Join the 12,233 Bitcoiners that are currently on the app. The Orange Pill app will allow you to connect with fellow Bitcoiners. So if you're traveling, you go to a new city, you don't know anyone around you, and you don't know any Bitcoiners around you, you pull up the Orange Pill app, and it has a really clever geographical feature, and it will allow you to connect with Bitcoiners that are near you, allow you to send them a message and connect with them and talk with them, get the conversation going. It's also one of the best ways to reach Opti. If you want to talk to Opti, send him a message on the Orange Pill app. He loves that. And it's one of the best ways to connect with me. So if you want to talk to me and you want me to respond back to you, send me a message on the Orange Pill app. I make sure to go through all the messages every week or two. So yes, message Opti on the Orange Pill app. Anyways, I'm very excited to have John on the show today, because first of all, me and John are friends. Great to see John's face again. Great to see John thriving. And I want to talk about John's projects. I'm going to pass it on to Opti. John is working on the Citadel theory, which I feel like fits in perfectly with what we were just talking about in terms of hedging your jurisdictional bets. So Opti, it's all yours.
Yeah. But John, before we go into Citadel theory, I think some good context is the story you were telling me before the show about how this year you've traveled more than ever, and just the epiphany, I guess, for lack of better terms, of why you think the Bitcoin social layer is so important. And, you've been connecting with Bitcoiners, and I think this is a perfect segue to go into the whole Citadel theory and your website and what you're working on.
Yeah, absolutely. Early on in my Bitcoin journey, I very much realized that if the Bitcoin thesis is correct, if we really do believe that this is the most the best money, that we are on the verge of just a radical change, a massive wealth shift, wealth transfer, the greatest wealth transfer that has ever taken place, then the people who are adopting this new asset, their network is going to be increasingly important as time goes on. And that was something I realized, as well as like as I was kind of going down the Bitcoin rabbit hole alone, learning about it, learning about the effed up monetary system, and then how Bitcoin is kind of fixing these things. It was kind of a lonely journey. Like you're kind of, especially if you are one of the first in your friends group to realize these things, it can be somewhat isolating. And you might bring up some topics to your friends, and they're like, "Dude, what the hell are you talking about? The dollar's the dollar. You're not gonna change that overnight." But then, as you get online, you start to meet other people through Twitter, and you start to maybe even go to meetups and meet people in person and have these actual real life conversations with people who are seeing the same reality that you're seeing. So I realized how powerful that was, and especially when it comes to education and actually going deeper down the Bitcoin rabbit hole and deepening your understanding of Bitcoin, what the implications are when you're around other people who have thought about it deeply for a long time, then you can gain from their insights a lot faster. So that's why, like early in my journey, I started hosting Bitcoin meetups. I started the Bitcoin Path podcast so I can connect with other Bitcoiners as well around the globe. And over the past few years, I've been able to travel to so many different countries, attend all these different Bitcoin podcasts, or attend all these Bitcoin conferences, and also host a lot of events and meetups on my own. And I guess what I've come to realize is that we talk about Bitcoin, and then we also talk about Citadel theory as being like, this is kind of the next iteration of Bitcoin, where we're protecting our finances, but we also want to protect our bodies and our families and our friends in each space. And so we want to set up like robust and defensible properties that have access to food and natural resources. But the thing is that those properties and those fortified structures, they're going to protect us as people, and we are all connected through relationships. So that's why like community and the social connections that you have ultimately are the most important things when it comes to Citadel theory. These are that's laying the foundation for your citadels. So yeah, as I've traveled this year, I started out in Costa Rica. I went to Buenos Aires, went to El Salvador. We did a retreat there with a few guys and spent the summer in Europe. I just came from Bali and going back to Buenos Aires to lead this adventure coming up. But
could you scroll up, Opti?
Chad.
John, it seems like you're with. That's definitely not a Bitcoin meetup. That can't. It's not possible.
Those are the exclusive Bitcoin meetups that invite.
This is why you got to Citadel theory. You might
quite a few Bitcoins there. Yeah.
Let's go. Okay. All right, John. Well, you killed it on Citadel
Gary
theory.
Leland was actually there at that party. So
you and Gary, right? And a lot of friends. No, Dread doesn't surprise me. But that's
Bobo. Let's go. Oh, Chad. Okay. Speaking of Citadel theory and some of your events, you did just drop this latest video, so I want to play that for the audience real quick, and then you can chat about it a little bit.
What's going on, amigos? I'm here in Biarritz, France, and want to give you a heads up that I'm joining up with Mikael Maggiota to host an epic Argentinian adventure this upcoming November. And over the past year, A lot of us have set our sights on Argentina as this exciting new citadel destination, and really for good reason. So we put together an immersive experience for a small group of like-minded Bitcoiners, investors, entrepreneurs, digital nomads, to see with our own eyes what's actually going on and explore what this beautiful country has to offer. What's going on, amigos? I'm here.
Love it. Love it. All right. So, John, let's talk about the event in Argentina.
Such happy music, too.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah, it's happy. We're going to be happy there.
We're bringing joy back.
Yeah, man. Well, this is the thing. The thing that's going to bring us joy and satisfaction is actually building the new paradigm, building the new system, because obviously the existing system's flawed, the existing paradigm is flawed, and we need to we want to exit it. But when you exit a paradigm, you need another one to replace it with, right? So our basically, that's what we're trying to do from the ground up in Argentina. A group of us got together last February, and there's a few of us exploring Buenos Aires, and we were getting together, having all these conversations about, some of the great opportunities that Argentina has at this point in time. One of them being a potential political shift, whereas the U.S. may be kind of on a downswing in terms of the economy, in terms of the fiat world and encroaching on people's freedom. Argentina stands at this potential juncture where, since they've had so much economic destruction in the past, the people are primed and ready for a new paradigm, a new way of looking at the economy. So basically, we wanted to. I got together with Mikhail Margiotta, and we are wanting to create an experience that starts in Buenos Aires, then goes to Cordoba, and then to Patagonia. And it's essentially a premium tour of the country, and where we're going to be talking about in Buenos Aires, we'll be focused on more of the business aspect of things. What are the main opportunities when it comes to investments? We'll have experts who are focused on residency and citizenship and some of the legal stuff you got to be aware of, and how to really take advantage of what Argentina has to offer from the investment and business standpoint, and also the obvious lifestyle advantages that living in a city that's really like one of the most beautiful cities I've ever been to, and then culturally, it's just so rich. It has a heavy like European influence. Obviously, people are beautiful. So lifestyle wise, it's incredible. So we'll be in Buenos Aires. Yeah.
I want to talk about this. So, like, first of all, guys, if you guys don't know, John throws the dopest fucking events. All right, this guy is a master at this. And second of all, yeah, like the cost of living. Could you scroll down, Opti? Because I really want to focus on.
All right, sorry.
Could you scroll down? So first of all, John throws the best events, and he has a very good talent at putting together not only dope events, but also putting together the right, obviously from that picture, but putting together the right people and the people that you want to know. And this is was a great way to network and connect with other Bitcoiners, and also have a retreat. So you're getting away. It's like a vacation, but it's a productive vacation because you're connecting with other Bitcoiners, you're networking. And also, one of the awesome things about Argentina, and in fact, all of Central and South America, is like, dude, you could live off $1,000 a month and you could live fucking well, right? Unlike a lot of like the US and Europe and all that stuff. So yeah, I mean, this looks awesome. This looks awesome. Yeah, exactly for now. So this looks awesome. I highly recommend. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the venue that you found, John? Because I already know it's dope.
Yeah, so we found this beautiful, in Buenos Aires, we have beautiful, basically a mansion in one of the best neighborhoods, in my opinion, of Buenos Aires, in Palermo. And it's extremely central. It's beautiful. We've got a pool. We've got, all the amenities. And that's going to be kind of the hub. That's where we'll be gathering together for asados, for the traditional asados, Argentinian. If you guys haven't been to Argentina, it's just, the food is absolutely incredible. And yeah, so we'll be getting together for these asados, and then having our panels and talks where we dive into all these different aspects of life in Argentina right afterwards. And the BitConf is going on right at the same time. So there's going to be some other side events going on around that. But yeah, that's going to be basically a summit where we're talking about Citadel theory. We're talking about Bitcoin adoption in Buenos Aires and getting some of those residency and legal questions answered as well, and just having a good time, enjoying our like premium villa mansion in Buenos Aires, and having just an exclusive. We'll have a few exclusive after hours parties as well for people who are attending.
So if people wanted to find out more about Citadel theory, and then specifically this event coming up, Hopsy, could you go to the event?
Yeah.
I got it. Just trolling John.
So if people wanted to find out more about this, because it says that there's a limited amount of residential and non-residential passes available, where should they go? They're looking at this, they're hearing the show, they're like, yo, this sounds dope. Never been to Buenos Aires before. I want to go. How do they sign up? Is it all included? I'm assuming there's a ticket price. Does it include the food? Does it include the room and board? Yeah.
Wait, John, before you go, really enticing the chat. Is there a ratio parameter here that is enforced when you go to the
For certain events, there will be, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot going on there.
Is it all included?
Yeah, so in Buenos Aires, we have residential and non-residential options available. We still have a few residential passes, and then we've got 21 total non-residential passes for people who want to come. They want to be a part of the event and the festivities, but they just want to get their own Airbnb. They don't want to stay at the house because there's only 5 bedrooms at the house. So if you're interested in coming to any of them, and that's just Buenos Aires. After Buenos Aires, we're actually chartering a private plane, and we're flying to another property in Cordoba, and then after we'll spend 7 days in Cordoba, and then from Cordoba we'll fly in the same plane to Bariloche in Patagonia, and we'll spend 7 more days in Patagonia exploring that. So these are 3 different events. If you want, they're all inclusive. The ticket pricing is all inclusive. So the residential and non-residential passes in Buenos Aires, and then there's only residential passes available in Cordoba and Patagonia. So if you do want to come, they're invite only. So reach out to me directly, send me a DM. You can fill out a form, the application form for our community on the website on citadeltheory.com, or you can email me at john@citadeltheory.com. And yeah, I didn't even get into the things we're getting into in Cordoba and Patagonia, but it's going to be just an incredible adventure. and really
Hell
looking
yeah.
forward to it.
Hell yeah. Well, guys, go over to citadeltheory.com if you want to find out more information. Go check out their upcoming retreat that is coming up in Buenos Aires. What are the dates again, John?
October 30th to the 4th in Buenos Aires, and then October 30th to November 4th in Buenos Aires, November 4th to the 10th in Cordoba, and the 10th to the 16th in Patagonia.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. All right, everybody. Well, go check out citadeltheory.com for more information. Again, I put my rubber stamp of Nico approval on this. John throws some of the best
Hashtag
events.
me too.
So John throws some of the best events ever. He really knows how to get people together and just make it interactive and fun. And you're going to have good food there. The environment is going to be awesome. So I can't recommend this enough. Also, we'll put it down in the YouTube description as well. Guys, this was your Simply Bitcoin Live for October 18, 2024. I'm your host, Nico. This is my co-host, Optimus Fields, and our guest for today, Jon Chenot of Citadel Theory. Guys, everyone have an amazing weekend. We'll be back on Monday for a new episode of Simply Bitcoin Live. Stay tuned for later on today. Dante will be dropping a Bitcoin Simply episode, and stay tuned for the weekend. We'll be dropping some content as well. But Simply Bitcoin Live will be back on Monday. Everybody go outside, touch some grass, enjoy the family, eat some good food, and love you all. We'll see you guys later. Peace out, everybody.
To you by BitcoinWell.com, a Bitcoin-only platform on a mission to enable financial independence.